Alright, this lesson's all about multiplying polynomials. And when we multiply polynomials, two things have to happen. First of all, on this first problem, and all the problems, what you're doing is you're doing two things. You're really multiplying the numbers and the letters separately. So really, if I was to rearrange this, it's really 3 times 5 times x to the fourth times x to the third. Now, I'm not going to rewrite it that way every time, but that's really what your mind needs to see. You're multiplying the 3 and the 5 first to get 15, and then we learned about multiplying bases with the same x or same bases gives you add the exponents, the 4 and the 3, to get x to the 7th. Okay. So when I look at this problem initially, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, all right, I multiply 3 times 5 is 15, and then x to the fourth times x to the third is just x to the 7th. That's how I would break that out in my head. So basically I'm doing this without writing that every time. So same thing on the second problem, but I'm going to be distributing on the second problem. Now I have to distribute whenever I have a plus sign or a minus sign in a problem. You have to distribute this number that's on the outside of the parentheses. Okay. On the last one you didn't really have to distribute, you just multiply together. So I distribute it, so I'll rewrite it to be 5x squared times negative 4x squared plus 5x squared times 3x minus, well, I'll put plus 5x squared times negative 2. And then now when I simplify, let me put parentheses wherever the times was actually, where the multiplication was. Okay. And now I multiply just like I did before. I do my numbers first, and I get negative 20. And then I do my variables. It gives me x to the fourth. And I added those. I didn't times to get 4. I added. And then plus, I multiply my numbers to get 15. Multiply the variables, and there's a 2 and a 1, so I get 3. And then I have 5 times negative 2, which is negative 10. And then there's no variable to multiply, so I just write x squared, because there was an x squared here. And that is distributing and multiplying those polynomials. Okay. Now at this step I could look for like terms, but because there aren't any like terms, I look for them, but I don't have to combine any like terms. Okay. Now I already went over a FOIL problem in the last lesson, but this is actually where I intended to teach you FOIL. FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, last. And all it is it's an acronym just to remember when or what the exact order is to do your multiplication. So the firsts are the things in the front of the parentheses, and you're supposed to multiply them first. So I multiply the 3x times the 2x squared, and so that's my f. And then I multiply my outers, so that's the 3x, the furthest outside in the parentheses, and times the x. So I'll write plus 3x times x. And then I have my inners. Oh, sorry, let me write the O there. And then I do my inners, so I multiply the inmost things, that's the negative 4 and the 2x. So that's negative 4 times 2x squared. So that's my I. And then my lasts would be my negative 4 times my x. So negative 4 times x, and that's my L. So that's FOIL. You can see how it's colorful and coordinated there. And then you just go ahead and work it out. So when I work it out, I'm going to get 3x times the 2, which gives me 6x to the third, plus this is going to multiply out to be 3x squared, minus 4 times 2 is 8, x squared, and then minus my 4x. And that is my simplified answer. Actually, it's not my simplified answer. There is actually one thing I need to look for, which is some like terms here. And you can see in the middle, I've got 3x squared and negative 8x squared. Those are like terms, so I want to actually simplify those and give me negative 5x squared. So I get 6x to the third minus 5x squared minus 4x. this is my final answer, because I have no more numbers that I can actually simplify. Okay? So let's do another. So that's my one FOIL, just regular FOIL problem that I have for you. This next problem is actually, it's going to turn into a FOIL problem, but I got to do a little distributing first. So let me go ahead and erase for us. And what you'll see is the first step is I need to actually distribute this 2x squared. Actually, it doesn't have to be the first step. I could do FOIL with these parentheses first, but yeah, it actually doesn't matter which way I go. But I'm going to distribute first, and I just distribute into the first parentheses, and that's kind of why I want to show you that you distribute. You do not distribute all the way across. You only do it into the first parentheses, because by doing that you're going to multiply here, then you'll multiply that answer by the parentheses by foiling, so it's all going to get multiplied anyway. So don't over distribute here. So it's just going to rewrite to be 2x squared times x plus 2x squared times 1. Okay? And now that's still being multiplied by x minus 3. The x minus 3 is still coming on over here. Okay? So I just need to reduce or simplify that a little bit, and that's going to give me 2x to the third plus 2x. Okay, that's what that simplifies to be. And then I'm just going to rewrite my x minus 3 down here again. Okay. Now that I have two parentheses, I'm going to FOIL. FOIL happens, and I don't think I wrote that before, FOIL happens when you're multiplying two binomials. Okay, binomial means you have two terms. Okay, so basically it's a parentheses with two numbers in it. So if you look here, you had parentheses, two numbers. Now down over here on the right, I've got parentheses, two numbers inside. Whenever you have that times another one, that's when you're going to FOIL. So basically you're looking at four things, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's when you FOIL. Okay, so for the sake of space here, I went ahead and erased and moved the problem up. So I want to go ahead and distribute, or FOIL, so I do my first, which is my 2x to the third times the x, so I get 2x to the third times x, and then I do my outers, so I do my 2x to the third times my negative 3, so it's plus 2x to the third times my negative 3, and then I do my inners, so that's my I, inners here would be 2x times x, okay, and I get plus 2x times x. And then I'm going to do my last, which is my 2x times my negative 3. Okay, and now what we're really doing here when we're FOILing is we're just distributing each number to the second parentheses. So if I was to do this, try to get a bright color going here. First thing I did was I took my 2x and I times it by the x, and then I times it by the negative 3. So you can see it distributing to both of those numbers. And then the 2x down at the bottom, I times it by the x, and then I times it by the negative 3. So you can see that I'm distributing each number in the first parentheses by each of the second two numbers. And that's why FOIL is helpful, because it helps us not miss any numbers when I'm multiplying. So now I just need to further simplify what I have, which is going to give me 2x to the fourth, and then this will give me negative 6x to the third, because negative 3 times 2 is 6, and then plus 2x squared, and finally negative 6x. And I want to go ahead and look for any like terms. There aren't any this time, so I can actually box my answer and say I'm done. Now we're going to get into some special type of situations with FOIL. Okay, and again, FOIL is whenever you have a binomial times a binomial. So two terms in a parentheses times another two terms in parentheses. Why this first problem is special is because hopefully you notice you got 6m, 6m, 5n, 5n. The difference between them is this one's positive, that one's negative. Now, whenever you have this, you can go ahead and FOIL it all the way out if you want, or what I try to tell my students is you just have to F and L. F and L, okay? Which means you just have to do the first and last, and you don't have to do oi. So if you have the FOIL word written out, you don't have to do the oi, okay? So just F and L, which means you just have to multiply the 6m times the 6m, which gives me 36m squared. And you just have to multiply the last, which is 5n times negative 5n, which would give me negative 25n squared. Because 5 times negative 5 is negative 25, n times n is n squared. And that's the answer. That's as far as you have to go. You only do that when they're the same numbers, okay, and their difference is one's a plus sign, one's a minus sign. If they're both plus signs, you can't do this. You have to FOIL all the way out, and you'll see that in the next problem. But this is the one situation you get to F and L. And these are called, the reason why you can do that is because these are called conjugates. Okay, conjugates. Okay, sorry, that didn't write the T there. Conjugates. So, again, conjugates are, they're the same numbers. One's a plus, one's a minus. Okay, so one's positive, one's negative, same numbers. You get to do F and L. Now the second problem, and again, you could FOIL that all the way out. If you FOIL it all the way out, the middle numbers will cancel, and you'll get that number, that answer anyway. So I'm just trying to save you some time if you can recognize these. Now the second problem is a binomial squared. So this still turns into a FOIL problem because you have, when something is squared, what you should not do not do this, which is distribute the 2. A lot of people try to distribute the 2 and they say, oh, my answer is just m squared plus 49. And that is not the correct answer. You didn't do enough work. What's supposed to happen is you're supposed to actually write this, so this is not true. You're supposed to write this twice. You're supposed to write m plus 7 times m plus 7. And when you do that, you would actually FOIL it out. Well, if you FOIL it, you'll end up getting the answer I'm going to tell you anyway, which is m squared plus 14m plus 49. Now, let me explain where I got that. What I did was I took the first number and squared it. I took the two numbers to get, so that gives me the first number. Then I take the m and I times it by the 7, which will give me 7m, and I times it by 2, and that gives me the 14. And then last, I get the last number, the 7, and square it to get 49. So you take the first number, square it to get the first number. Then you take the two numbers and times them together and double it to get the 14. And last, you take the 7 and square it to get 49. And what that is supposed to be a shortcut to get the same answer that you could get by FOILing. And it's just helpful when you see problems like this that it just gets you your answer faster. So again, I could actually FOIL it out and write m plus 7 times n plus 7. And that would give me m times m, which is m squared. And then I would do so that's m times m. Then I would do m times 7, which is plus 7m. And then I would do 7 times m and get plus 7m again. And then I do 7 times 7, which is plus 49. So you can see it doesn't take that much longer, but it's just a little bit quicker if you can memorize the step and get m squared plus 14m plus 49. So again, the quick way is just to take your first number, square it, and that gives you m squared. You take your two numbers, multiply them, which is 7m, and double it to get 14. And then you take your last number and square it to get plus 49. Okay, so it's just a little bit faster. It's just a little trick that helps you. So again, conjugates, you do F and L. The second one, hopefully you listened to my steps there, which was you take your first number and square it. You take your two numbers and times your two numbers. Well, let's do, what's a faster way to write that? You would take your first times your second number, and then you double it. Maybe I'll write A and B in there so it doesn't look like 1 times 2. So you take your A and your B, and if this was your A and this was your B, okay, and then you just take your last number and you double it, or sorry, square it.